The village of Merisenda clung like a stubborn barnacle to the rugged cliffs. Its heart beat the relentless rhythm of the sea for generations. Its people thrived under the watchful gaze of the Yemayas, ancient sea spirits who wove a shimmering, invisible net of protection from moonlight and ocean mist. This net calmed storms, guided fishermen safely home through treacherous currents, and ensured the bounty of the waters. Elders spoke of it in hushed tones, a fragile, sacred trust between the human world and the deep. Life moved with the tides, predictable and secure, until the day the great storm lashed the coast with unnatural fury, and the threads of the net began, inexplicably, to unravel. Kale, a fisherman whose laughter once echoed across the docks, became a ghost haunting his own small cottage overlooking the churning gray waters. Months before, the sea he loved had claimed his beloved wife, Liora, during a sudden squall that arose without warning. The first sign, some whispered, of the net's failing power. His young daughter, Liora, with eyes the exact shade of the summer sea Liora adored, watched her father's spirit dim like a guttering candle. He barely spoke, his strong hands idle, his boat, the star's promise, abandoned on the shore, a skeleton picked clean by grief and salt air. Liora felt the village's fear growing, a cold dread seeping into the stones of every home. One violent night, a tempest unlike any in living memory descended upon Merisenda. Waves, monstrous and black, roared against the cliffs, shaking the very foundations of the cottages. The wind shrieked like a banshee, tearing tiles from roofs and flinging fishing nets into the furious darkness inside their trembling home. Liora huddled near the cold hearth, watching her father stare blankly at the storm-lashed window, paralyzed by the echo of his own loss. The protective hum of the Yemayas net, a sound she'd always taken for granted, was gone, replaced by the raw, terrifying scream of the unleashed ocean. She knew, with a certainty that pierced her fear, that if nothing changed, Merisenda would be swallowed whole. A memory surfaced in Liora's mind. Her mother's voice, soft and strong, telling the old tale. When the net frays, child, it takes hands that remember love, hands willing to mend what the sea has broken, to weave the moonlight back together. Looking at her father's broken form, then out at the village being pummeled by the storm, a fierce determination ignited within her. She couldn't let the darkness when pulling on her oilskin coat against the lashing rain. She slipped out into the maelstrom, driven by a love deeper than her fear, heading towards the sacred cove where the net's anchor points were said to reside. The cove was chaos incarnate. Waves exploded against the rocks, showering her in freezing spray. Wind threatened to pluck her off her feet, and there, shimmering faintly like torn spiderwebs caught in the moonlight piercing the storm clouds, were the remnants of the net. Great rents gaped within its ethereal fabric, threads snapping and dissolving. Even as she watched, Liora stumbled forward, her small hands reaching out. She touched a drifting strand. It felt like cool water and starlight. Remembering her mother's stories, she grasped two loose ends. It wasn't about strength, she realized, but connection, intention. Focusing all her love for her father, her mother, her home, she began to gently, painstakingly, twist the luminous threads together. A tiny spark of silver light flared where her fingers worked. Liora's desperate act didn't go unseen. Old man Hemlock, the village elder who remembered the net's last mending, saw the faint silver glow from his window. He roused his grandson. Word spread like wildfire, carried on the howling wind. One by one, villagers emerged from their shelters, battered by the storm but drawn by the impossible glimmer in the cove. They saw the small figure of Liora, illuminated by her own efforts, fighting the tempest with nothing but fragile threads and fierce love. Fishermen, weavers, mothers, fathers, they waded into the churning water, reaching out hands, calloused and gentle, young and old, joined Liora's. They touched the net, not with force, but with reverence, weaving their own hopes, their memories, their collective love for Merisenda back into the fabric. As more hands joined, the net began to pulse with a soft, radiant light. The shimmer grew stronger, spreading outwards from the cove, a wave of silver radiance flowing across the turbulent sea. Where the light touched, the monstrous waves seemed to shrink back, Their fury gentling the shrieking wind dropped to a murmur. Then a sigh the villagers worked in silent awe, tears mingling with rain on their faces. As the gaps closed, the rents healed, and the Yemayas Unwoven net became whole again, stronger and brighter than before, humming with a profound, peaceful energy that vibrated through the air and the water, calming the very soul of the sea. The dawn broke over a sea as calm and clear as polished turquoise. The stars promised bobbed gently in the harbor, ready on the dock. Kale stood tall again. The crushing weight of grief hadn't vanished, but it had shifted. He looked down at Liora, her hand clasped tightly in his, then out at the restored village, the mended net, a faint, comforting shimmer on the horizon. He saw it now. The net wasn't just the Yemayas' magic, it was woven from their care, their resilience, their love for each other and the sea. Liora's courage had reminded them all. With a deep breath smelling of salt and renewal, Kale turned to his daughter, a real smile touching his eyes for the first time in months. Ready to cast off, little tide weaver? He asked, his voice rough with emotion but clear. Hand in hand, they stepped towards the boat, towards the calm waters, towards a future they would weave together, forever watched over by the strong, luminous threads of the Yemayas Unwoven Net, made whole once more.